a book and then we hold the card so they can read it and it says, please give a donation. And anybody can do it because you don't have to say anything. And it was huge, right, Chaitanya?
Very much, especially that day I was impressed actually in Kolkata. We were only there for one day, and almost half of our collection of Lakshmi, as well as a good chunk of our books, went on that one day with between all the places we went, and especially even on that bridge. I noticed because some of us were going across the bridge and flagging down every vehicle we could flag down to give a book or a lollipop or anything. And we even invited some devotees or people to the temple because they were unaware that there was a ISKCON temple in the town. So uh, overall, a really nice preaching effort within Kolkata as well.
Wow. Well, you did a fantastic job. Thank you very much. Rancho, it was your foray into book distribution management last year. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was a interesting experience. I mean, it kind of just came on to me by the mercy of Brajarasabhavana. But I think it's a nice experience, especially distributing books in India. Um, you really don't have to say anything, and a little bit, even just like kicking off your shoes in front of them shows it goes a long way, just small steps. And I think it's a nice experience. I remember when we were in Ekachakra last year, I remember distributing books while in the auto rickshaw because there'd be a lot of traffic jams. So the rickshaws would stop and then people would walk by and you try to distribute books to them. So it just becomes a very ecstatic experience. And people are super receptive there. You don't have to convince them a lot. It really just becomes about giving and everyone understands some dan is good for the temple, so some donations. So yeah, I think it's just a nice experience doing it there. But I think also like doing it here as well.
Yeah. I kind of, if you're starting off, it's a nice place to start in the Dom because people are very open and submissive and it gives you some confidence, right?
Right.
Thank you very much, Rancho. Welcome, Maya. Welcome, Ryan. Good to have you back. Well, who's moderating us today to get us started with the official Youth Jam announcements and everything?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I believe I am. Madhuri Sakhi is in London right now, and she's also experiencing some jet lag. Um,
Well, besides the fact that it's almost midnight there, right?
exactly.
We know that from Mukund Hari, who's also, he joins from London from time to time. What time is it there, Mukund Hari? Oh, it's just midnight. Yeah. So is it you?
Yes, so I'll just be giving a quick announcement regarding our program. Thank you all for coming in today after our 3 week break, our winter break. And so, Marge, the schedule's up to you. We've usually been doing one shloka set and some reading, and then having more of a flexible format for the rest with discussions. And before we start our youth jam, we start off with a prayer. And so the way it works is someone nominates another person and then another person seconds that. And so we'll be accepting any nominations at this moment. And then I'll also just put in all our social media links in the chat, along with a way you can share Youth Jam to your friends so that they can also join the program. So would anyone like to nominate someone? Okay, we got Maya is nominating Sanvi. Would anyone like to second that?
I will.
Oh, Marge also nominated Sina above. Sorry, I missed that, Marge.
That's all right.
All right, I think Sanvi, you've got seconded and you've been nominated. Would you like to
Um,
give a pair?
yes, please.
Should I send the format for you?
Um, I think it's already in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
My dear Narsimadev, if you so desire, please allow us to properly fulfill our bhakti and in this new year to please allow us to increase our bhakti and increase the quality of our bhakti. Thank you so much for considering my request, our request. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Sanvi. I'll hand it over to you, Maharaj.
Sure. Let's chant a set of shlokas with Sanskrit and English. And are we still working on chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita? Let's just do chapter 8.
Yes, it's chapter 8 until January 16th.
Oh, good to know. Thank you. Who feels good about reading the Sanskrit verses? If you do, we'll take 3 volunteers to read the Sanskrit, and you can do 10 each. Anapaini's 1, Chaitanya's 2, una más por favor, ek or. Hey, we need one more Sanskritist. Okay, I volunteer. All right, you start. And then after we go all the way through, we can come back and pick several more for doing the English.
All right. So everyone can repeat behind muted mics. Arjuna Uvacha. Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam kim karma purushottama adhibhutam cha kim proktam adhidevam kim uchyate adhyagya kotra dehesmin madhusudana prayanakale cha katham yeyosi niyatatmabhihi. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavodhyatmamuchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaro Visarga Karma Samgita Adhibhutam Ksharo Bhava Purushaschaदिदैवतम् Adhyagyo Hame Vatra Dehi Dehabritambara Antakale च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरं या प्रयाति समद्भावं याति नास्त्यत्र संशया यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभाविता तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु मामनुस्मरयुध्य च मयार्पिता मनो बुद्धिर्मामे वैश्यस्य संशया अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा नान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थानुचिन्तयन् कविं पुराणं मनुषाशितानां अनोरणीयां समनुस्मरेत्य सर्वस्य धातारमचिन्त्य रूपम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसा परस्तात् प्रयाणकाले मनसाचलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगबलेन चैव भ्रुवोर्मध्ये प्राणमवेश्य सम्यक् सतं परं पुरुषमुपैति दिव्यम्
यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागः यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनोहृदि निरुध्य च मूढ्यध्यात्मनः प्राणम् आस्थितो योगधारणाम् ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहं स याति परमां गतिम् अनन्यचेतः सततं यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिनः मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतं नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गतः आब्रह्म भुवनाल्लोका पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम् अर्हर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्तं देहोरात्रविदो जनः अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्व प्रभवत्यः रागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैव व्यक्तसंज्ञके भूतग्रामस एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ प्रभवत्यः रागमे परस्तस्मात् भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यस्य सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति
Avyakto shara ityuktas tamahu paramam gatim yang prapya na nivartante tadhama paramang mama. Purusha sapara partha bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyanta stani bhutani yena sarvam idang tatam. Yatra kale tunavratim avratim chaiva yoginaha prayata yanti tam kalam vakshyami bharatarshabha. Agnir jyotiraha shukla shanmasa uttarayanam tatra prayata gachanti brahma vido janaha. Dumo ratris tata Krishna Shanmasa Dakshinayanam Tatra Chandramasam Jyotir Yogi Prapya Nivartate Shukla Krishne Gati Yete Jagata Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yatyanavratim Anyaya Vartate Punaha Naite Sriti Partha Janan Yogi Huhyati Kashchana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yogi Yukto Bhavarjuna Vedeshu Yagneshu Tapasu Chaiva Daneshu Yat Punya Palam Prachushtam Atyeti Tat Sarvamidang Vaditva Yogi Param Stanam Upaiti Chadyam. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Taraka Brahma Yoga Nama Ashtamo Dhyayaha Hari Om. Okay, our operators are standing by to take your calls for reading the English. We'll take the first 5 callers. 1, Sanvi. 2, Saina. 3, Kirti. 4, Nisha. 1 more to go. Who's the last one? Okay, go ahead. How many did we get? 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. Go for it.
Wait, how much should I read, Maharaj?
You should read. How many should you read?
I don't know.
Read.
There's
read
28
read
verses, so
6.
7. Yeah, so
Oh, okay. Arjuna inquired, O my lord, O supreme person, what is Brahman? What is self? What are fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Who is the Lord of sacrifice? And how does he live in the body, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of living entities is called karma, or fruit of activities. The supreme personality, O best of embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of Lord, which includes all demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adideva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Supersoul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adhyagna, the Lord of Sacrifice. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental, living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of material bodies of living entities is called karma. Wait, I already read this. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt.
He who meditates on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, he who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is unconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this material nature. And one who, at the time of death, fixes his life air between the eyebrows and, by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practice celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing the door of all the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service.
After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest in the unmanifest state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they emerge into the unmanifest again. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Yet there is another unmanifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. That which the Vedantas describe as unmanifested, infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns. That is my supreme abode.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated with him. O best of the Bhartas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain that supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god, in the lay at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. The mystic who passes away from this world during this month, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet but again comes back. According to Vedic opinion, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. Although the devotees know these 2 paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end he reaches the supreme eternal abode.
Okay, so Nisha, pick a verse. Which one would you like to hear the purport to?
Verse 14.
A wise choice. Okay, let's hear it. Nisha, why don't you read the translation and the purport?
For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. This verse especially describes the final destination attained by the unalloyed devotees who serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Bhakti Yoga. Previous verses have mentioned 4 different kinds of devotees: the distressed, the inquisitive, those who seek material gain, and the speculative philosophers. Different processes of liberation have also been described: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. These principles of these yoga systems have some bhakti added, but this verse particularly mentions pure bhakti yoga, without any mixture of jnana, karma, or hatha. As indicated by the word ananya cheta, in pure bhakti yoga, the devotee desires nothing but Krishna. A pure devotee does not desire promotion to heavenly planets, nor does he seek oneness with the Brahma Jyotir, or salvation or liberation from material entanglement. A pure devotee does not desire anything. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the pure devotee is called Nishkama, which means he has no desire for self-interest. Perfect peace belongs to him alone, not to them who strive for personal gain. Whereas a jnana yogi, karma yogi, or hatha yogi has his own selfish interests. A perfect devotee has no desire other than to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the Lord says that for anyone who is unflinchingly devoted to him, he is easy to attain. A pure devotee always engages in devotional service to Krishna in one of his various personal features. Krishna has various plenary expansions and incarnations, such as Rama Narsimha, and a devotee can choose to fix his mind in loving service to any of these transcendental forms of the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee meets with none of the problems that plague the practitioners of other yogas. Bhakti yoga is very simple and pure and easy to perform. One can begin simply by chanting Hare Krishna. The Lord is merciful to all, but as we have already explained, he is especially inclined toward those who always serve him without deviation. The Lord helps such devotees in various ways. As stated in the Vedas, Katha Upanishad 1.2.23, Yam Evarsha Vrinite Tena Vabhyas Tasyaisha Atma Virvirnite Tanam Swam. One who is fully surrendered and engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord can understand the Supreme Lord as he is. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.10, the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam, the Lord gives such a devotee sufficient intelligence that ultimately the devotee can attain him in his spiritual kingdom. The special qualification of the pure devotee that he is always thinking of Krishna without deviation and without considering the time or place. There should be no impediments. He should be able to carry out his service anywhere and at any time. Some say that the devotee should remain in holy places like Vrindavana or some holy town where the Lord lived, but a pure devotee can live anywhere and create the atmosphere of Vrindavana by his devotional service. It is Sri Advaita who told Lord Chaitanya, "Wherever you are, O Lord, there is Vrindavana." As indicated by the words Satatam and Nitya Shaha, which mean always, regularly, or every day, a pure devotee constantly remembers Krishna and meditates upon him. These are qualifications of the pure devotee, for whom the Lord is most easily attainable. Bhakti Yoga is the system that the Gita recommends above all others. Generally, the Bhakti yogis are engaged in 5 different ways. Shanta Bhakta, engaged in devotional service and neutrality. Yasa Bhakta, engaged in devotional service as servant. Sakya Bhakta, engaged as friend. Vatsalya Bhakta, engaged as parent. And Madhurya Bhakta, engaged as conjugal lover of the Supreme Lord. In any of these ways, the pure devotee is always constantly engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord and cannot forget the Supreme Lord. And so for him, the Lord is easily attained. A pure devotee cannot forget the Supreme Lord for a moment, and similarly, the Supreme Lord cannot forget his pure devotee for a moment. This is the great blessing of the Krishna conscious process of chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Nicely read. Your Sanskrit pronunciation is very good. So I have a challenge for all of you. Are you ready for a challenge? I don't believe it. You got to put up an emoji if you really mean it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so here's the challenge. Imagine that you're going to describe this verse or any of the contents of the purport to a person who's never heard of Krishna consciousness. They come from Rhode Island. They grew up in a rural community and they don't have much exposure or any exposure to Bhagavad Gita or the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but they're nice and open-minded. And your challenge is to describe the meaning of this verse or any aspect of the purport to the brand new person. How would you put it? Maybe we could read the verse one more time, not the whole purport, but can give it in a way that somebody could have, you had to build context for them. For one who always remember me without deviation, I'm easy to obtain Osanaprita because of his constant engagement in devotional service. The only thing I ask is when you try is just don't stress, be yourself, and just do the best you can. Okay, who would like to try? Is it a hard challenge? Okay, I'll count down from 5, and then I'll start randomly calling on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sanvi, You were smiling, so I know you had some ideas.
So um, Krishna is wait, so like they don't know anything about Krishna?
Yeah, they don't know a thing. So they're open book. They're very open to hearing, and just tell them the essence of the verse without it. Yeah, knowing that they have no idea what Bhagavad Gita is. They've never heard of Krishna before, anything like that.
So Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Um, and we are all um souls, not the body. And in order to get back to Krishna, since we're very fallen and we've been placed in this material world, in order to get back to Krishna, we have to remember him. And to do that, we must chant like the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, um, and um, try to develop Krishna Prema, because at the end of your life, I mean, that's kind of the other verse too. But at the end of your life, if you remember Krishna at the time of death, which is what we need to try to do, and that's like kind of the goal of chanting to develop Krishna Prema, because death is like a very painful experience. I think it was described as like 100 scorpions. I don't know, something like that. So it's very hard to like remember something. So if you continuously practice it throughout your life, then you can remember Krishna at the time of death and eventually get back to him.
That was amazing. Wow, Sambi, it just comes out like naturally for you. Thank you very much. Well done. Now you get to pick somebody else. Just pick anyone and they can take it up from there. Anything you know, you're talking to a new person, anything you want to describe to them about this verse?
Saki Vrinda.
Adding on to what Sanvi was saying, I would say that what we practice is something that has been going, something that has been passed down from our disciplic succession, and that is to be getting closer to Krishna, which is known to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to develop that connection, in order to go back to Him when our lifetime is over in this material world. And what we follow is something called Bhakti Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga is what our disciplic succession has passed down to us. And in Bhakti Yoga, we chant a meditating mantra, which is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And it goes like Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to ultimately build that connection with Krishna and to go back to him.
Wow. Well done. It's very parampara, but at the same time, you used language that a new person could understand. Well done, Saki Vrinda. Thank you very much. Okay, now you pass the ball to somebody else. Pick him, whomever you like.
Chaitanya.
All right. So I noticed that you were from Rhode Island, and it's pretty rough out there. So I would I would suggest that you wanted to do something that's just something that takes you away from all that uh, misery and everything out there. So would you want to do something really easy and fun and pure and simple?
Yes.
Well, this purport says that you would want to perform bhakti yoga because that's exactly that. It's very simple and easy to perform. And all you need to do, as you've already heard from my predecessors, is that you chant Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And you get to go to a place that's much more warm and vibrant. That's what you could get away from Rhode Island for a while.
I felt that was very compassionate. And since you were speaking, I was accepting it as like you were talking to me, and it sat very well. It was very conversational. I like that a lot. Thank you, Chaitanya. Who would you like to pass the ball to?
Kirti?
I'd say like Krishna is like who we worship, and he's the Supreme Lord, and we have to, and there's so many miseries in this world, and there's no way to like escape it other than to fix our consciousness on Krishna and perform devotional service, which is really easy. Like everyone else said, you just have to chant Hare Krishna, and you can have a relationship with Krishna. There's so many different ways you can have a relationship with Krishna, which is really nice. So you can have your own personal connection with him. You can like have a relationship with him like you're his parent. You could be his lover, you could be his friend. And Krishna always reciprocates, which is really nice. So it's really easy and it's really fun, and it helps you get rid of the miseries in your life so you can be happy.
Wow, Kirti, nicely done. It's very personal the way you put it too, especially how you brought in relationships. When I heard those points about that, it sounded like, wow, I'd like to have a relationship like that. Thank you very much. Who would you like to pass the ball to?
Unsure.
Um, so we understand that all of us, even whether or not we're from Rhode Island, face different types of miseries. And those miseries are due to the fact that we have desires that go unfulfilled. And we understand that those who try and actively fulfill those desires, along with those who try to completely reject the desires, and those who try to use some mysticism to somehow dissolve those desires, cannot reach their goal. So the only way we can be free from the miseries of our mind having unfulfilled desires is to transform all those desires into the service of God, of Krishna, because that's a desire that can be fulfilled, and the reciprocation and the happiness that is partnered with that desire does get fulfilled. And we can achieve that service through our remembrance of Krishna. It's very interesting that just by remembering our job, that doesn't mean we get paid. We actually have to do our job. But just by remembering Krishna, that is our job in the process. So just by the easy process of remembering Krishna, we can very quickly subdue our other desires and the miseries that are attached to it.
Wow, I like that. It's very philosophical. And you gave a problem and then a solution to it. Compelling. Nicely done, Ranchor. Who would you like to pass the ball to?
Brajra Bhavana Prabhu.
Oh,
Could you
well,
repeat the verse again once?
yeah, I can read it one more time.
Okay.
For one who always remembers me without deviation, I'm easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches a very simple method of connecting with some higher source. We all have a natural tendency to serve. Either we're doing it in our job or we're doing it in our relationships, but we focus on always having someone that we want to serve to. And so why not serve the best person? And that best person is who we call Krishna, or the Supreme Lord. And he makes it so easy for us. He tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that just by serving him, remembering him without deviation, just focusing solely on him, he awards us his love, and he lets us build a relationship with him, of loving devotional service. And that is the highest form of engagement, because someone who's at that level, we call them a pure devotee. They don't have any desires for anything else on their own. They just want to be with Krishna, and they want to experience something just with him. There's no need to compete in this world anymore. There's no need to survive in Rhode Island because you're just serving Krishna.
I love the non-competition aspect of it. Sound like a great relief. And that there's one place you can place your attention where you feel satisfied. Thank you, Brajaras Babada. Would you please pass the ball to somebody who hasn't gone yet?
Tiffany Agora.
Okay, so I wasn't here for most of the prayer, but I'll try. So Krishna is our supreme Lord, and he rules a place. He lives in a place called Goloka, and it's very nice. It has no miseries like Rhode Island, and and to get to that, you would think it would be very hard, but Krishna makes it very easy by telling it to us in the Bhagavad Gita, and he says that if you remember me without like any distractions or like other things, no deviation, then then you can easily come to him just by saying like the Hare Krishna mantra, which is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which is service unto him. Then you can easily obtain him and go to his abode.
That was really clean. And I love how you use the word, there are no distractions. You unpack that idea of Ananya Bhakti. I also talked about an actual place where you'd go, Goloka Vrindavan. Way to go, Kirtani Agora. Who would you like to pass the ball to?
Nisha.
So I say if you're in the stress of Rhode Island, then you should just worship our Lord Krishna because he will give you happiness and you won't like have any negative like feelings or emotions. And if you have a relationship with Krishna, then you'll be happy and will like attain his love. So you just chant the very simple mantra Hare Krishna and you will get his love, which is the highest reward.
I really like that, Nisha. It was simple, straightforward, easy to understand, and really from the heart. Did a great job, I think. Boy, who else is there to pass the ball to? See if you can hit somebody who hasn't gone yet.
Arushi?
Try one more person. Because Arushi's on mute. Ryan, okay. What have you to say? Ryan? I think you've got only one more choice. Sina, did you go?
No.
You could pass the ball to her.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
So I would basically say that this verse describes the importance of pure prayer. So we all maybe prayed for like some sort of material desire or to get something, but this verse really emphasizes the desire of like no distractions and just the power of praying from the heart, pure prayer without having any like intention behind it. and it just shows unwavering devotion, and that when a person thinks of God constantly without having any ulterior motive, then it it makes it, first of all, it's really satisfying, and it really brings them to a place where they can get to the attain the divine and get to this higher planet. And if you just incorporate God, it's a really easy thing to do in your daily life. Just constantly think of him. It's it brings you happiness, and eventually you can get free from the miseries that you experience in your hectic life in Rhode Island and get to a place where there is eternal bliss and no misery. And it's a very simple process, but very rewarding.
Nicely done. I liked how you gave it context from the very beginning. You're saying, okay, this is what this verse means. And then you gave a compelling argument for practicing bhakti yoga. Okay, Ryan is not feeling well. I hope you feel better soon. And let's see, the only person we didn't call on yet is Girdhari. And if you're out there and you can hear us and you'd like to have the last word, it's all yours. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And now,
What do I have to say?
oh, Ryan, you're there. You okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do I have to say?
Well, why don't you read him the verse one more time? And we're just giving an explanation of the verse, thinking that we're describing it, the meaning of it, to a new person. Oh, there it is. It's right in the chat. For one who always remembers me without deviation, I'm easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. And if you just say, imagine you're telling it the meaning of that verse to a brand new person, what would you say?
I think he left, Mara.
Okay. All right. So now we have time for a reading of the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. And we left off somewhere near the beginning. And if you'd like to read 3 paragraphs, you can volunteer by just raising your hand. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We've got Kirti, we've got Nisha. I'll start. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We're continuing our reading of the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita right here on Youth Jam 2025, coming to you from the Youth Jam studios, broadcasting all over the world at this time. And thank you for joining us. If you're joining us online to listen into Youth Jam, we have some of the world's finest and most intelligent youthful devotees here on today, and we'll be reading for you. So sit back and enjoy the reading of Prabhupada Lilamrita, 3 paragraphs at a time. Let there be a page only, if not more, for the publication of Back to Godhead, for which we do not mind, but my earnest request is that the government should at least let there be a ventilation of the atmosphere for which my paper Back to Godhead is meant. Kindly, therefore, give it a serious consideration and allow me to start even by 1 page every weekly or monthly as you think best, without thinking it as ordinary waste of paper for the sake of humanity and Godhead. The letter was successful. Now, with veiled sarcasm, he headlined his second issue, "Thanks to the Government of India." He informed his readers, many of whom had been disappointed to learn that the government had curtailed his printing, that he would be able to continue his magazine every month. Abai printed his letter to the government paper officer and also the reply granting him permission. His articles were shorter, this time displaying the flair of a news columnist. As with philosophical criticism, verve, and a touch of ironic humor, he commented on world leaders and crises. Gandhi Jinnah Talks, Mr. Churchill's humane, quote unquote, humane world, Mr. Bernard Shaw's wishful desire and spontaneous love of Godhead comprised the issue. If you get a super, super long paragraph, you might want to just do one. If you get smaller ones, then read 3. If you get medium size, then read 2. Go ahead, Kirti, you're up.
Gandhi Jinnah Talks. We are sorry to learn that Gandhi Jinnah talks about unity of the Indian people have failed for the present. Abai was not very optimistic about the results of such occasional talks between several heads of communities. Even if they made a successful solution, it would break up and take the shape of another problem. They were looking for unity between Muslims and Hindus, but in Europe the fighting parties were Christians, and in Asia they were mostly Buddhists, but they still were fighting. So fighting will not go on between Hindu and Mohammedan, because between Hindus and Hindus, or between Mohammedan and Mohammedan, between Christians and Christians, and between Buddhists and Buddhists, till the day of annihilation. As long as there was the contaminated self-interest of sense gratification, there would be fighting between brother and brother, father and son, and nation and nation. Real unity would stand only on a plane of transcendental service to the Supreme. Mahatma Gandhi, Abai wrote, is far above ordinary human being, and we have all respect for him. But Abai advised Gandhi to give up his activities on the material plane and rise to the transcendental plane of the spirit. Then there could be talks about the unity of all people. Abai cited Bhagavad Gita's definition of a Mahatma, one who concentrates his attention on the service of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. He requested Mahatma Gandhi to adhere to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and preach its message of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. In this way, Mahatma Gandhi, through his influential position in the world, could bring about universal relief simply by preaching the message of Bhagavad Gita.
Mr. Churchill's humane world. We are pleased to find that leaders of the world politics such as Mr. Churchill have nowadays begun to think of a humane world and trying to get rid of the terrible national frenzy of hate. The frenzy of hatred is another side of the frenzy of love. The frenzy of love of Hitler's own countrymen has produced a concomitant frenzy of hatred for others, and the present war is the result of such dual side of a frenzy called love and hatred. So when we wish to get rid of the frenzy of hate, we must be prepared to get rid of the frenzy of so-called love. This position of equilibrium free from love and hatred is attained only when men are sufficiently educated. Until men were educated to see the soul within the body, the dual frenzy of love and hate would continue, and a humane world would not be possible. This introspection, Abai concluded, is easily attained by the service of Godhead. So Mr. Churchill's humane world implies that we must go back to God.
Mr. Bernard Shaw's wishful desire. Mr. Bernard Shaw has congratulated Mahatma Gandhi on the occasion of the latter's 56th birthday in the following words. I can only wish this were Mr. Gandhi's 35th birthday instead of his 76th. We heartily join with Mr. Shaw in his attempt to Subtract 41 years from the present age of Mahatma Gandhi. But death does not respect our wishful desire. Neither Mr. Shah nor Mahatma Gandhi nor any great personality had ever been able to solve the problem of death. The leaders of nations have opened many factories for manufacturing weapons for the art of killing, but none has opened a factory to manufacture weapons for protecting man from the cruel hands of death, although our wishful desire is always not to die.
Men were preoccupied with the problem of how to get bread, although this problem was actually solved by nature. Men should try to solve the problem of death. Bhagavad Gita tells that the problem of death can be solved. Although death is everywhere in the material world, one who attains to me, says Krishna, never has to take his birth again in the material world. There is a spiritual world, non-destructible, and one who goes there does not come back to the region of death. Why should the leaders of nations cling to the planet of their birth, where death is inevitable? Abai concluded, we wish that in their ripe old age, Mr. Shah and Mahatma Gandhi will make combined effort to educate men to learn how to go back home, back to Godhead. After 2 issues of Back to Godhead, Abai had to stop. Printing was costly, but he kept writing regularly, working on Gita-upanishad, turning out new articles and philosophical purports on the scriptures, even in the same book in which he wrote his pharmaceutical formulas.
One night, Abhay had an unusual dream. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta appeared before him. Knocking? He was asking Abhay to leave home and take sannyasa. Abhay woke in an intensely emotional state. How horrible, he thought. He knew it was not an ordinary dream. Yet, the request seemed so difficult and unlikely. Take sannyasa. At least it was not something he could do immediately. Now, he had to improve the business, and with the profits, he would print books. He went on with his duties, but remained shaken by the dream. In 1945, the war over and the war over and India still in turmoil under British rule. Abhay saw a good opportunity to make his business more successful. In Lucknow, 600 miles from Calcutta, he rented a building and opened his factory, Abhay Charande and Sons. It was a major investment requiring 40,000 rupees to start, and he began on a larger scale than ever before. So, according to law, to ensure that he was not dealing in the black market or misusing chemicals, he had to employ 3 government inspectors. Yet, despite the high overhead to establish a good market and his products were in demand, he closed his small operation in Calcutta and concentrated on the Lucknow business.
Although the building was known locally to be haunted by ghosts, Abhay had not been deterred. But when he began his operations, some of the workers came to him frightened. Babu, Babu, there's a ghost. Abhay then went through the entire building chanting Hare Krishna, and after that, there were no more complaints of ghosts. On November 13th, Abhay wrote to his servant, Gauranga, mentioning some of his difficulties in Lucknow and asking him to come there to help. In his letter, Abhay spoke bitterly of his wife Radha Rani and children. Gauranga Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. I have received your letter dated 7th. Due to lack of time, I could not reply in time. I stay here alone with some servants. If I leave now, then I will have to close everything down. Due to my leaving once and closing the business, I have lost about 10,000 rupees, and the goodwill has also been affected, and my enemies have increased. That is why I am fighting, practically staking my whole life. I'm staying here all alone in the middle of so many difficulties, not worth nothing. That's why I was writing to you repeatedly to come here. As soon as you receive this letter, show it to Dubra. Take at least 10 rupees from him and come here. When you come here, I will make arrangements to send money to your home. What's the point in holding you back with an excuse that there is no servant or maidservant? I tried to serve them enough by keeping servants, maidservants, and cooks, but up until today they have not become attached to devotional service. So I am no more interested about those affairs. When you come here, then I will go to Calcutta. If I see that they're interested about devotional service, then only I will remain my establishment there. Otherwise, I will not maintain them anymore. Bring a quote for me. Yours, Abhay.
The two interests, family and preaching, were conflicting. Radharani had never shown any interest in back to Godhead. She seemed to work against his enthusiasm, both for publishing and for earning. The business was called Abhay Charande and Sons, and yet the sons were disinclined to help. And when he had called for his servant to join him in Lucknow, the family had objected, saying they needed Gauranga alone there. What was the use? The family was interested neither in backing him in his business, nor in taking up the life of devotional service. And since his business was primarily an outcome of his family life, he resented that he had to give it so much of his energy. It was the old economic law by Marshall that he had earned in college. Without family affection, a man's economic impetus is weakened.
Of course, there could be a compatible balance between family service and devotional service. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had described two simultaneous obligations, bodily and spiritual. Social status, mental development, cleanliness, nourishment, and the struggle for existence were all bodily obligations. The activities of devotional service to Krishna were spiritual, and the two should parallel one another. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur's life, his family was a source of spiritual encouragement, and he used his social position to advance his preaching. But Abhai's experience had been different. The two paths seemed to be at war, each threatening the other's existence. He felt himself operating somewhat like the materialists he had criticized in his writings, absorbed in the struggle for existence with insufficient time for self-realization. Although his family made more and more demands of him, he was feeling less inclined to work for them and more inclined to preach Krishna consciousness. It was a predicament. He could only push on diligently, support his family, expand his business, and hope for a great success so that he could revive his publishing.
But the Lucknow factory seemed almost beyond his means. He had purposefully begun on a large scale with the aim of making a larger profit, but monthly expenses were high. He had fallen behind in his rent, and now he was involved in a court case with the landlord. Although he was visiting Calcutta regularly and shipping raw materials from Calcutta to Lucknow daily, he always found his family members in Calcutta uncooperative. His servant Gauranga was also reluctant to work as Abai required and was thinking of going back to live with his family. Abai again wrote to Gauranga on the 23rd, offering my humble obeisances at the feet of the Vaishnav. Gauranga Prabhu, I have received your postcard dated 18/11/45 and got all the informations. There is no need to come here just for a month after spending the money and then go back. For the present, take 25 rupees from Dubra and go home. Write a letter to me after your arrival. Then I will send the rest of your money in 1 or 2 installments by money order. Then from there, you let me know when you can come here. I have started my work here in a fairly big scale. You have seen that with your own eyes. So if there is no income, who will spend for court interrogation? Everything is on my head. The brother and sons are just eating and sleeping like a bunch of females and breaking the axe on my head. And Rancher, read for the close. You go home as soon as possible and get the money and try to come back as soon as possible. Yours, Sri Abai Charan Day. Una más, por favor.
Chapter 6, An Unknown Friend. Let the sharp moralists accuse me of being illusioned. I do not mind. Experts in Vedic activities may slander me as being misled. Friends and relatives may call me frustrated. My brothers may call me a fool. The wealthy Mammonites may point me out as mad. The learned philosophers may assert that I am much too proud. Still, my mind does not budge an inch from the determination to serve the lotus feet of Govinda, though I am unable to do it. Aside from his difficult, oh, Srimad Vindapuri. Aside from his difficulties with business and family, Abai had to survive the cataclysms of Indian independence and partition. He was not active politically, but was one of hundreds of millions affected by the violent dawn of Indian independence. While Gandhi and the Hindu-dominated Congress were demanding a united free India, the Muslim League, led by M.A. Jinnah, called for partition and their own Muslim nation, Pakistan. The conflict raged. In August 1946, the outgoing British government invited Jawaharlal Nehru, Congress Party president, to form an interim national government, but the League objected. The Muslim cause would be denied. Jinnah had already declared August 16th Direct Action Day, which amounted to little in most parts of India, but in Calcutta erupted in Hindu-Muslim rioting. After in 5 days of violence, 4,000 died, and thousands more were wounded. In the months that followed, Hindu-Muslim rioting repeatedly flared up throughout India.
Okay, for 25 points, without looking it up, what's a Mammonite? Don't look it up. You just got to say, where does the word Mammonite come from? Hint, it comes from mammon. What's mammon? Okay, you can look it up. Did anybody look up mammon?
Yeah.
Means?
It's wealth regarded as an evil influence or false object of worship and devotion.
And where does it come from? Personification of riches and worldliness, mid 14th century from late Latin, mammona, from ecclesiastical Greek, mammonas, from Aramaic, mammona, mammon, riches gain. A word left untranslated in Greek New Testament, Matthew 6:24, Luke 16, 9 through 13, retained in the Vulgate, look that up, Vulgate, and regarded mistakenly by medieval Christians as a name of a demon who leads men to covetousness. Look up Vulgate and also look up covetousness. Vulgate, Latin translation of the Bible, especially that completed in 405 by St. Jerome. From medieval Latin Vulgata, from late Latin Vulgata, common, general, ordinary, popular. Steve Olger. Okay. Mammonite, somebody dedicated to wanton living and material desires and acquisitions. Sorry you missed out on the reading, Kirtania Gore, unless you had your hand up for another reason. We're going to go on to the time for realizations, reflections, RR, and questions. RRQ. Time for RRQ. A rousing session of RRQ. The phone lines are open. Our operators are standing by to take your calls. Realizations, reflections, questions. We'll give extra credit for good ones. Okay, Brajras Bhavana.
really like those titles that he had in the second issue, and it was like Gandhi and Jinnah, um, Churchill's Humane World, and then Bernard Shaw's Wishful Desire, and then Spontaneous Love of God. And I was thinking how Krishna consciousness sometimes is like that, where it's very it seems very different from other forms of spirituality and religion, where it's all about leaving the world and going away, doing something else. Whereas Prabhupada, he 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 faced that world directly and talked about it and and navigated it from a different perspective, where someone is trying to someone that's above it is trying to get others also to that same level. And it was prevalent in his writing for those three different pieces, where he just showed a lot of maturity in dealing with these situations from a very Krishna conscious perspective. And then the end goal always is that spontaneous love of God, where it's about transcending all these different material calamities that we are constantly witnessing.
Really nice observation. And a thought came to my head. One of the ways that some professors teach writing in English courses is to pick an author, read a book, and then to emulate the writing style. I thought it might be interesting experiment to pick topical articles or personalities of the day, and then write a short paragraph, not right now, but as a project. And everyone could pick something from the news or some person. Like if you're going to pick something from the news today, what would you choose? If anybody knows what's going on anywhere in the world, name a subject.
The new president.
Oh, okay, new president. So say you pick that, and then you could write something in the same style in a paragraph. Anapani Bhakti, what do you think of that idea? Don't worry, I'm not volunteering you. I know you got three more class, four more classes to finish. But I'm just saying it would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just to clarify, so we would write about the new topic in the perspective or in the voice of which author? I was kind of confused on.
Prabhupada.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I had a class, I studied English, and the last semester I was in school, the teacher asked me to read various novels, and then I read the novel, and they say, "Okay, now you write a paper that's in a similar voice and style as that author," and it exposes you to writing like a particular type of person, certain style. I was thinking with these short topics that Prabhupada was putting in the Back to Godhead magazine, and it's something Prabhupada wanted for his followers to do is write articles for the Back to Godhead. We could practice that by just picking something topical like a new president, fires, whatever it is, and then just try to hit the nerve of it like Prabhupada was doing and write in a similar style that he's writing. That would be it. Maybe you just jot it down and we can get the conception of it and we'll apply it in some place. Okay, we have Ranchorji.
Um, I kind of building off on what Brajarasa Bhavana said. I think it's it's really interesting to see how um I think the biggest discussion in our movement as of now, or just generally, is balancing the need for innovation in presenting Krishna consciousness with chastity to our parampara. Um, and it's a real art. And I think Prabhupada did a really good job of capturing what was on the the mind of people, and then connecting it to the agenda that he was trying to push. And generally, that's a good marketing or political campaign technique. You kind of hear what the problems are, and then you address them, rather than tell people what you do. you think their problems should be and what they should be focused on. And I thought the way Prabhupada connected everything to Krishna consciousness and said the only solution here is Krishna consciousness. It's a very effective method. Just calling out, hey, you think this is a problem, I also, but I have a better solution than whatever you think it is. It's a very compelling argument. I also really appreciated the verse from Madhavendra Puri. I think it's an interesting verse because he says that I let everybody kind of criticize me, let everyone kind of go, and I think that's a big step for a devotee to take because typically we see like figures, even if in the material world, when they try to become religious or pious, they do so to not necessarily to get fame, but they enjoy a certain amount of fame, um, and uh, like societal praise, or they do it in a very show bodily way, so it looks so nice. But I liked how Madhavendra Puri is. Um, that verse shows that in our parampara, the emphasis is always on the internal, never on the external, showing that he's willing to get criticized. He's not doing it to be so show bodily. He's doing it for the internal deep purpose of pleasing Krishna. So I thought that was a very interesting point, and I really like that verse.
Thank you, Ranchor. And maybe add it to your notes on Apayani Bhakti, that observation that Ranchor just brought up about how Prabhupada would pick a problem, then say, yes, I know, I agree, it is a problem, and then he would give a superior way to solve the problem than what other people are doing. That could be in that description of what the project is, of what to write. Okay, Sanvi.
Um, I'd like to point out like how Prabhupada, even though he was doing his prescribed duty of like running his business, like his pharmaceutical business, he still kept thinking about Krishna and kept also like continuing on the path of bhakti. And I feel like that's a really good like lesson or like an example for all of us because like we also need to do our prescribed duties, but yet we still should also like be like Prabhupada, or at least try to be like Prabhupada, and just like think about Krishna. And like he also took steps, like he kept translating it, like the scriptures, I think, like even his pharmaceutical book, and how he posted the Back to Godhead magazine and stuff. So, and even though his mind wasn't, even though he was doing like his task like in his company, he was still thinking about Krishna, which I think that's very like that's what we should strive to do as well. And that's kind of like about the verse as well, which talked about how you should like constantly remember Krishna and like out deviation or something like that. And that's basically what Prabhupada was doing. So he's a really good example. Like
Nicely done, Sanvi. Thank you very much. Good philosophical points. Anapayani Bhakti.
Hare Krishna, I was thinking that as we were reading, we read a lot of mundane activities that Prabhupada had to be involved in, like sending this payment to this person, calling this person, making sure things were going through. And I was thinking that no one in this world, like no human, is really freed from like these meticulous details of living. And I think I always had like this preconceived notion that someone who's like a full-time devotee or like completely liberated won't have to deal with these things. Like they have it simpler and they just get to chant all day, read all day, and it's simpler. But I'm realizing that it takes the same effort throughout all courses, all courses of life to actively be thinking of Krishna within um like mundane activities and logistics of living in this world.
Nice observation. I just speak from personal experience. When you take up management also in a community, then you 10x your exposure to problem solving. Besides, and or if you have a business too, like Prabhupada had, then it's constant problem solving. But it's really nice observation to have that realistic view, see that Prabhupada faced many different issues, and just also how he dealt with them straightforwardly. And you could see that when he came for his mission, that he was experienced in that as well, because he was 10x problems dealing with in international society. Sina. Oh, was that you? Yeah, you. Sina. Go ahead.
Thanks, Shiva. So I really liked how Prabhupada was like this entire center of his business was like kind of like Krishna conscious because whatever money he would get, he would use in printing his magazines. But also, I also really like seeing how so basically Krishna's kind of guiding Prabhupada because like through his dream he sees Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur kind of appearing before him and like saying like you should take sannyas. So it kind of shows how like a pure devotee is constantly guided by Krishna because you can see that his business is kind of becoming a hindrance for him, and ever since that Prabhupada's kind of getting like aware like okay maybe my family isn't really I mean, he's doing his prescribed duty by taking care of them, but like they're not taking up to bhakti, and my bhakti is kind of getting affected, and like Krishna's kind of guiding him towards the direction that he should be going. So, like, it's really inspiring to see how, like, as we get farther and farther in bhakti, like Prabhupada was like becoming that pure devotee. Like whenever there would be the fear of ghosts, he just chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and like none of the people were scared anymore. So he's becoming to that level of a pure devotee, and Krishna's kind of guiding him. And I thought that was really interesting and nice
Yeah,
to see.
similar point to what Anapayani Bhakti made was that just because Prabhupada was a pure devotee didn't mean that his children were all pure devotees as well.
Yeah.
You can expect that many of the same encumbrances that you'll find in any person's life, you may have that even as you become a pure devotee. Kirti, nicely done, by the way. Thank you for your comment. Kirti, go ahead.
Adding on to like Sanvi and Sina, I was thinking like Prabhupada faced like so many difficulties, like no one was really helping him. Like he had financial difficulties, and like when he went to Vrindavan, like Krishna threw so many like obstacles in his way to test him, but Prabhupada was like always persevering through it, which is like really inspiring. As an example, it's like persevere through all the difficulties. And Prabhupada, like in the end, he helped like so many people, which is really like inspiring to see we could like do the same. And yeah.
I find that inspiring too, especially the parts where, against all odds, he went on printing his magazine. Instead of the government gave him problem, paper was expensive, he didn't have much money, so many things, as you were pointing out, he just persevered through them. Such an example to follow, isn't it? Thanks, Kirti. Okay, Kirtani Agora, you missed out on the last reading, but we got you back for some RRQ.
So I wanted to add on to what like Sina was saying, to like how Prabhupada like he realized that his family wasn't like they weren't helping him in his Krishna conscious life, and he had that thing of like detachment, and he was detached, and he was wanting to focus on his Krishna conscious life, and was like slowly he realized that his family wasn't helping him, so he had to focus more on Krishna and kind of like
Yeah, it kind of goes with the verse today too. That's just despite whatever else is happening. I mean, it's implied in Ananya Cheta that there's going to be obstacles, but if you just stay fixed in thinking of Krishna, then as Krishna points out later in the Gita, you can overcome all obstacles if you remain conscious of him. Thanks, Kirtani Agora. And now, Brajras Bhavana, do you have any points you'd like to make, especially introducing anybody new?
Yeah, I think today we have Nisha who's new. Hare Krishna, Nisha. Would you like to introduce yourself? Just tell us where you're from and what brings you to Utah, and how you also felt about today's program.
So I am in a suburb of North Carolina. So I'm kind of in the northwest of North Carolina. My cousin brought me here. My cousin is Kirti. She introduced me to this, and I looked at the website. I thought it was cool, and she sent me the website, and so I joined.
Way to go, Kirti. Your cousins? Well, that's nice. Nisha, thanks for joining. You added a lot today. It was really great having you here. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You're a really good reader too. Is anybody else new? No, everybody else has been here before. Well, it went so quick today because it was so engaging. I just get carried away by the hearing the Lila Amrita. It's so deep, isn't it? Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody. I know you're all busy and it's really heartfelt that you take your time to join for this youth jam. It's great to see you all. And today we did our chat. We chanted a whole chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We gave discussion on it. All of you boldly held forth and gave a talk based on the verse and how you present it to a new person. Then we had some realizations and discussion in that after reading the Lilamrita. Well, we'll leave it there. Some of you can go play in the snow. The rest of us will just wallow in the dryness of California. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radhamadan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Sringadev, if you so desire, please give special benedictions to everybody who joined today, that they'll feel happy in their hearts and they won't be disturbed by any obstacles in the material world because they'll feel identified with Prabhupada and think of how he just went on serving and thinking Krishna. And they'll also feel joyful, so much so that they'll want to give Krishna consciousness to others and they'll meditate on how to do it. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Panchakalpatarishya Kripa Sindhavev Chapatita Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Okay, go out and do good for the world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.